Hare Krishna Prabhus. Please accept my humble obeisances. Vanchakapatarubyascha kripasindhuvaracha patnam pavanebhyo vaishnavabhyo namo namaha. I'm going to quote the invocation prayers. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devem Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jaya Mudirayet Shinvatam Svakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Vidyantasto Yabhadrani Vidunati Suhrit Sutam Nasta Prayasha Bhadresho Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Tamashloke Bhaktir Bhavatina Ishtaki Om Adhyana Timirandasya Gyanajana Shalakaya Chakshu Unitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langarete Girim Yat Kripatamaham Vande Shri Guru Natarinam Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Shrimate Niranjana Swamiti Namine Anahata Prasena Prabhupadasya Tushtaye Sankirtana Praviti Artam Yate Guruve Namaha Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swamiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasati Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So today I have to admit that I looked at the calendar in the wrong way, and somehow I thought that this week, coming week, in the middle of the week is going to be Nrisimha Chaturdashi. So I thought it would be nice to read something about Lord Nrisimhadev. But then here, when I came to the temple, I look again at the calendar. It turns out it's next week. But that's what I prepared. So I'm just going to read some shlokas from Srimad Bhagavatam. And actually, maybe it's good for us to prepare ourselves for Lord Nrisimhadev appearance day and start meditating on his appearance, on his devotee Prahlada Maharaj. And like this, when the actual appearance day comes, then we can already be prepared and receive whatever message or whatever instructions that somebody will give us with that much preparation of our heart. So the verse I would like to read today from Srimad Bhagavatam, 5th canto, 18th chapter, and verse number 8. But before I'll read this verse, maybe I'll give a little context. So what's happening here, Shukadev Goswami is speaking to King Parikshit, and he, in the previous verse, he describes to King, my dear King, Lord Nrisimhadev resides in the tract of land known as Harivarsha. In the 7th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, I shall describe to you how Prahlada Maharaj caused the Lord to assume the form of Nrisimhadev. Prahlada Maharaj, the topmost devotee of the Lord, is the reservoir of all the good qualities of great personalities. His character and activities have delivered all the fallen members of his demoniac family. Lord Nrisimhadev is very dear to this exalted personality. Thus Prahlada Maharaj, along with his servants and all the denizens of Harivarsha, worship Lord Nrisimhadev by chanting the following mantra. And so today's verse is the following mantra, which is chanted by Prahlada Maharaj. Om Namo Bhagavate Nrisimhaya Namastejas Tejase Avir Avir Bhava Vajranaka Vajradamstra Karmashayan Randaya Tamograsa Grasa Om Svaha Abhayam Atmani Bhuishta Om Shrahum, word for word. Om, O Lord. Nama, my respectful obeisances. Bhagavate, unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Narasimhaya, known as Lord Nrisimha. Nama, obeisances. Teja Tejase, the power of all power. Avi Avirbhava, please be fully manifest. Vajranaka, O you who possess nails like thunderbolts. Vajradamstra, O you who possesses teeth like thunderbolts. Karma Ashayan, demoniac desire to be happy by material activities. Randaya Randaya, kindly vanquish. Tama, ignorance in the material world. Grasa, kindly drive away. Grasa, kindly drive away. Om, O my Lord. Swaha, respectful oblations. Abhayam, fearlessness. Abhayam, fearlessness. Atmani, in my mind. Bhuyishtaha, may you appear. Om, O Lord. Shaum, the bija or seed of mantras offering prayers to Lord Nrisimhadev. So I've noticed that in this word-for-word translation, certain words are repeated twice. I guess it means there's an accent, the importance put on this. So the words abhayam, abhayam, fearlessness. Then grasa, grasa, kindly drive away. Randaya, randaya, kindly vanquish. So it's very fervent prayer. I'll read translation. I offer my respectful obeisances unto Lord Nrisimhadev, the source of all power. O my Lord, who possesses nails and teeth just like thunderbolts, kindly vanquish our demon-like desires for fruitive activities in the material world. Please appear in our hearts and drive away our ignorance, so that by your mercy we may become fearless in the struggle for existence in this material world. So this is the prayer of Prahlada Maharaj, and I'd like to just go back again to the previous verse and just read you the end of it. So thus Prahlada Maharaj, along with his servants and all the denizens of Harivarsha, worship Lord Nrisimhadev by chanting the following mantras. So Prahlada Maharaj, such an exalted devotees and denizens of Harivarsha, which is the residence of Lord Nrisimhadev, they continue, they offer these fervent prayers. I mean, we could understand that they are already liberated. They are pure devotees. Prahlada Maharaj is pure devotee. Yet he's praying with such an intensity, with such a fervor, to please kindly vanquish our demon-like desires for fruitive activities in this material world. Please appear in our hearts and drive away our ignorance, so that by your mercy we may become fearless in the struggle for existence in this material world. Purport. In Srimad Bhagavatam 4:22-39, Sanat Kumar speaks the following words of Maharaj Prithu. Yat pada pankaja palasha vilasa bhaktya karmashayam gratitam udgratayanti santah tadvan narikta matayo yatayo pirudha shoto ganas tam aranam bhajavasudevam. Devotees always engage in the service of the toes of the Lord's lotus feet. Devotees always engaged in the service of the toes of the Lord's lotus feet can very easily become free from the heart-knotted desires for fruitive activities. Because this is very difficult, the non-devotees, the jnanis and yogis, cannot stop the waves of sense gratification, although they try to do so. Therefore, you are advised to engage in the devotional service of Krishna, the son of Vasudeva. So these are the words of Sanat Kumara to Prithu Maharaj. Every living being within this material world has a strong desire to enjoy matter to his fullest satisfaction. For this purpose, the conditioned soul must accept one body after another, and thus his strongly fixed fruitive desires continue. One cannot stop the repetition of birth and death without being completely desireless.
Can you just switch microphones quickly?
Yeah. So I'll read this. So I'll read this sentence again. Is this okay?
I just have to turn it off.
So again, every living being within this material world has a strong desire to enjoy matter to his fullest satisfaction. For this purpose, the conditioned soul must accept one body after another, and thus his strongly fixed fruitive desires continue. One cannot stop the repetition of birth and death without being completely desireless. So we can understand from the very fundamental teachings of Krishna consciousness is that we are not this body, and there is a difference between body and the soul. And the nature of the soul is Satchitananda, which is eternal, full of knowledge and full of bliss. And the nature of body is Asat, Achit, and Nirānanda, which means it's temporary, it's full of ignorance, and full of miseries. Therefore, the combination of the soul and the body is not a very compatible arrangement for the soul. And because soul cannot experience its original nature, Satchitananda, within the confines of the body, therefore, constantly, we go through different bodies and through our life, and we're searching for this position, this situation when we are content, where we are happy, and this is our natural position, Satchitananda. However, while we go through these bodies, we just meet with one disappointment after another, and we cannot find the position in which we can be eternal, full of knowledge and full of bliss. For the I don't know what this is. Sorry. Therefore, the advice of the acharyas is that our main problem is this material body, and we should try to get rid of the material body and transfer our consciousness to the spiritual body, which is our original body. So we don't have to experience this constant threat of non-existence. Because when this body, we try to enjoy this and this, but we know that next moment the body is getting older, then it's going to die, it's going to disappear, and so on. So there's constant pressure and stress. But here Prabhupada says that, so for us, our main business should be to realize, Aham Brahmasmi, I am the soul, and my business is of spiritual nature, not of the material nature. But so simple realization, however, does not allow us to transfer from the material body to the spiritual body. We have to first clean up the house. We have to first create an order in our heart. And what is that? What is the disorder in our heart? Is that we are affected by so many material desires, and we want to fulfill them, and we want to use this material body to fulfill them. And that just becomes such an obstacle. And here Prabhupada says that one cannot stop the repetition of birth and death without being completely desireless. And being completely desireless does not mean that we don't desire anything, but we don't have material desires. Because soul, the nature of the soul, desire is a constant companion of the soul. We are sentient beings and we have desires, and we're supposed to have desires. But the material desires, they never fulfill or bring us to the platform of Satchitananda Vigraha. So in order to overcome this samskara of repeated birth and death, we have to get rid of all the desires in the heart. And this is not a very easy task. I don't know, does anybody think or has some kind of trick for getting rid of the desires in the heart? I don't know, maybe I can ask you, Prabhu, do you have any comments about these desires? That does anybody has a trick or some method to get rid of desires in the heart? Is anybody desireless here in terms of material desires? Would anybody like to say something? Yes?
Just thinking, a trick for getting rid of the desires in the heart is by fulfilling those desires. Then they're not there.
Okay, so I don't know if everybody heard. Krishna Dwala said that he thinks that the trick is to getting rid of the desires is by fulfilling them.
Because the thought is that when you fulfill those desires, or you try to fulfill those desires, you realize that you don't want to have those desires anymore, or how much of a hard work it was to fulfill those desires. And and then so you get realization, I guess.
So you fulfill one desire and then you realize that, okay, this was nice maybe, but what's now? What's next? Yes?
Maybe.
And next is another desire and another desire, and we go on like this. And we just don't come to the point that we don't have any more desires, material desires. These desires are limitless. So we just continue going. And Prabhupada even explains here that for this purpose, the conditioned soul must accept one body after another, and thus his strongly fixed fruitive desires continue. So it doesn't seem, maybe anybody else has some kind of suggestion for getting rid of the desires. There is a option that Prabhu, you can raise the hand and then say something. Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. A very important question, of course. My understanding is we cannot be free of desires. And the Krishna conscious process, when we properly follow under the guidance of one of our spiritual master, by his grace and through his instruction, we can engage our desires or transfer them into spiritual nature in the service of the Lord. So desire is inherent. We can't be free from desire, but we can engage our desire in the service of the Lord. So this way, our tendency for enjoyment will minimize, and eventually we become free from material enjoyment. And that's my understanding.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. Actually, it's so nice, such a nice comment, Prabhu, because it brings me to another point. So maybe I'll ask you, Prabhu. So many of you, Prabhu, so many of us are practicing Krishna consciousness for a significant amount of time. So how is it going with those desires? Can somebody just, I'll tell you about mine, but please, maybe you can share how is it going with getting rid of desires by practicing Krishna consciousness.
Nobody else.
Okay. Okay, let's go. Hare Krishna, Mother.
Muted?
Me?
Yes.
Oh, well, I had something to say about the other question about desires.
Okay.
I was just thinking about the concept of having a higher taste. And so we'll have desires, and some of those desires might fall in like a lower taste category. But when you're offered something of a higher nature, then naturally you reach for that, and the other thing will just go away. So we hear that with like food, like you won't go for the McDonald's if you have like a very nice pakora, and So that's a food analogy, but maybe that could be applied to desires. You know, when you're shown an example of like a higher or purified form of that desire, you might aspire for that and then drop the lower taste, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
And, pardon?
Yes, makes sense.
Okay. And to answer the other question, I'm still full of desires, and I'm just praying to Krishna about them. So that's another thing, whether you're full of desires, desireless, you bring them to Krishna and Krishna will help you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Because that was my second thought, is that yes, the higher taste that's the remedy. It's actually prescribed by the acharyas that if you experience higher taste, then you give up the activities of the lower nature. But I personally find that to experience the higher taste and to maintain that experience somehow alive, it's not so easy. And so another point Mother brought up is that even though we may practice and we may have some experience of higher taste, but those material desires are still there in the heart, we should pray to Krishna, and we should pray even for fulfillment of those material desires to Krishna. So if Krishna fulfills them for us, then we're becoming gradually more and more detached from those material desires, and we're turning towards Krishna more and more. So actually, the whole point of this prayer, is that Prahlada Maharaj, who's a pure devotee, with all his servants and all the residents of Harivamsa, even though they are pure devotees, they are completely engaged in the service of the Lord, they still fervently pray to the Lord. And they say, please kindly vanquish our demon-like desires for fruitive activities in this material world. Please appear in our heart and drive away our ignorance, so that by your mercy we can become fearless in the struggle for existence in this material world. I mean, this is such a wonderful prayer, because this material world, this material body, is just designed in such a way that, to get anything, to fulfill any desires, we have to work so hard. And even though we work so hard, there's still no guarantee that the desire will be fulfilled, or there's no guarantee that even if it's fulfilled, it's going to give us full satisfaction. So again, continue the purport of Srila Prabhupada. Here we will hear. Therefore, Srila Rupa Goswami describes pure bhakti, because first, Prabhupada explains that the devotees always engaged in their service of the toes of the Lord's lotus feet can very easily become free from hard-knotted desires for fruitive activities. Because this is very difficult. The non-devotees, the jnanis and yogis, cannot stop the waves of sense gratification, although they try to do so. Therefore, you are advised to engage in the devotional service of Krishna, the son of Vasudeva. So the remedy is given here that we should definitely engage in the service of the lotus feet of the son of Vasudeva, Krishna. And then Srila Rupa Goswami describes pure bhakti, which is the service to the lotus feet of the son of Vasudeva through Krishna. Pure bhakti devotional service as follows: Anya vilasita shunyam yana karma dhyana vritam anukulyena krishnano shilanam bhakti uttama. One should render transcendental loving service to the Supreme Lord Krishna favorably and without desire for material profit or gain through fruitive activities or philosophical speculation. That is called pure devotional service. Unless one is completely freed from all material desires, which are caused by the dense darkness of ignorance, one cannot fully engage in the devotional service of the Lord. Therefore, we should always offer our prayers to Lord Nrisimhadev, who killed Hiranyakashipu, the personification of material desires. So I'll get back to that sentence. So in other words, we understand that the remedy for removing the material desires from the heart is pure devotional service. But pure devotional service has to be performed without any material motive or material desires or speculative motive. So how can we get rid of desires? If we have the desires and we want to serve Krishna, then obviously it's not a pure devotional service, and it's not going to have the power to remove the desires from the heart. Therefore, one, yes?
There's a question from Mother Lakshmi Moni.
Okay, please, Hare Krishna Mother, please. There's a question from Mother Lakshmi Moni, yes?
Okay. I just wanted to say that, well, now I'll say two things. The first thing is that what I realized about my desires is that the desires I used to have that were really prevalent in my life, they've gone away, many of them. And then there's new ones. And so that makes me realize that the depth of desires is very deep. And as you scrape off the top layers, new ones keep coming. And then in relation to what you just said, that kind of proves what Krishna says, that this material energy is very difficult to overcome, and it can only be overcome with Krishna's help. And that's, as Niranjan Maharaj always calls it, extra special mercy, that Krishna has to intervene and help us, where it's not possible for us to overcome our material desire without his help. That's what I would say.
Thank you so much, Mother. And you know, I really appreciate, and I think there's really extra weight when the devotee with a lifelong experience in Krishna consciousness gives us the perspective to the desires. We can understand, you know, because I remember when I started Krishna consciousness, I thought, well, it's no problem. I'll just chant Hare Krishna, all desires will go away. and somehow they didn't go away, you know, they went away for a moment as long as I was engaged a little bit, but then they were coming back, and there's not new desires, and there's just, you know, yes, I got rid of some desires, but like it's endless. Mother gives it so nicely. So really, if we understand the perspective, that from the perspective of the whole life of practice Krishna consciousness, we understand that on our own, we really are so insignificant. Then we can invest our heart, just like Prahlada Maharaj invested in a very fervent prayer to Lord Nrisimhadev, please protect me. Please protect me from this demon-like desires that hunting my wife. Please give me with your, again, I think it's such a wonderful prayer. I mean, it just strikes me. When I read it, it just really struck me. So again, please appear in our hearts and drive away our ignorance, so that by your mercy, we may become fearless in the struggle for existence in this material world, because we have to struggle here. But if we struggle, and whether one is devotee or non-devotee, one has to struggle. But when we struggle and we have this mentality, attitude that we completely depend on Krishna, and we beg him, please, I have all these desires, I don't want to have them, I want to serve you somehow or other, please, the only way I can get rid of them is when you remove them. And Niranjan Maharaj was quote that prayer, like he said the prayer, said, even if it hurts me, please, because I don't want to get rid of them, please remove them. And even though I'm going to be miserable because you're going to remove them, let this misery of mine be your ecstasy. So, you know, to actually acquire this kind of attitude, we need to hold on, grab onto the feet of the devotee, of the Vaishnava, who has this kind of experience, who understands this, and who gives us this perspective, and who also shows us, by their example, that this is how I'm going to deal with my desires. I'm going to just hang on to Krishna and pray to him and beg him to intervene in my life in such a way that I can become pure, and I can clean order, make a proper order in my heart, and I can prioritize my life, my heart's emotions in such a way that I can actually focus on Krishna. So I'll just continue reading. So Prahlada Maharaj called on one second. So here we have, from this verse, we learn that Govinda or Krishna is the Adi Purusha, the original person. Just a moment, I went to the wrong verse here. So we understand that therefore we should always offer our praise to Lord Nrisimhadev, who killed Hiranyakashipu, the personification of material desire. Hiranya means gold and Kashipu means a soft cushion or bed. Materialistic persons always desire to make the body comfortable, and for this they require huge amounts of gold. Thus Hiranyakashipu was the perfect representative of materialistic life. He was therefore the cause of great disturbance to the topmost devotee, Prahlada Maharaj, until Lord Nrisimhadev killed him. Any devotee aspiring to be free from material desires should offer respectful prayers to Nrisimhadev, as Prahlada Maharaj did in this verse. So then there is this example of Hiranyakashipu given here, that Hiranya means gold and Kashipu means soft cushioned bed. And this is, you know, when we are within this material body, and I speak for myself, the tendency is to find a comfortable place, not to, you know, if you are tired, the tendency is to sit down and rest. If you are hungry, the tendency is to find something suitable for eating. And you know, if you're not feeling well, the tendency is to do all these things just to find a comfort. And in order to find the comfort, also our concept of comfort is that we can acquire and we can find or we can purchase comfort if we have money. So then what we do, we work really, really, really hard to get some money. And we think, as soon as I get some money, I can create a situation of comfort for myself. And it's such an elusive concept. And again, for those who have experience, and Prabhupada explains that experience means making mistakes. So those who have experience and lived their life, then they've made a lot of attempts for happiness and they failed in so many ways. They can understand how illusory concept it is that I'm going to work hard, make money, and then I'm going to make my life, my body comfortable. And I was just thinking about this, you know, Prabhu, I was thinking as we age and I age, I experience all these discomforts that are coming. And the natural tendency is, okay, let's take it easy. I need to find some relief from this pain, from headaches, from tiredness, from all these things. But in fact, you know, even if I find some comfort, it doesn't bring any satisfaction. The soul is not happy. The soul is not fulfilled. That there is no bliss. It's all just vegetation. Vegetation, yes. It's like, you know, like you just live for the sake of living. There's no ananda. There's no ananda in life. And I find somehow that, you know, by Krishna's arrangement, when we get opportunity to become engaged in the service, this completely changes. Krishna gives us life. Service to Krishna and service to Vaishnavas gives us life. And this is the method by which we can counteract these material desires. You know, the instructions, our main instruction is to never forget Krishna and always remember Krishna. And we understand that the most important instruction of Guru is to chant Hare Krishna. So Lord Chaitanya even says that, you know, the third verse of Shikshastakam is, can you just tell me the first verse? my mind is Chinada Pisunichina, Tara Eva Sahishnuna, Amanina Madanana, Kirtanya Sadahare. Kirtanya Sadahare means to chant constantly. So we can, this is the most important instruction of our Guru, our Parampara, is to chant the holy names constantly. But, you know, with all these material desires, it is not doable. It is not practical. And Prabhupada understood it. And Prabhupada actually gave us instructions, well, chant 16 rounds every day. And the rest of the time, fill with your service, with service to Krishna. And so this portion of filled with the service to Krishna, this is the remedy for subduing our material desires. And I find that every time that it happens to me, that I can get engaged in this devotional service, it works 100%. There's no failure. It's like, you get this medicine that is manufactured by a bona fide manufacturer, and there's no, iffy ingredients added and whatever, and you take it and it really works. It may be very expensive, it works. So this is how I find that devotional activities of devotional service work for the material desire. They work for me. I don't know how. So anyways, so the point is that, we may, it is a struggle. And, Prahlada Maharaja's life is an example of the struggle. He was so harassed, by his father, who was insisting that he needs to enjoy life. He needs to be demoniac like his father, do politics, and so on. But he was resisting, all the time resisting. And it's not that, it's not, even looking at this prayer, we can, if he continues to pray like this, it means that this is not something that is strange to him, the material. In fact, at some point, Lord Nrisimhadev asked him, was very pleased with Prahlada Maharaj, and asked him, ask me some boon. I want to give you a boon. And Prahlada Maharaj responded to him, my Lord, why are you doing this? You know that I am from demoniac family. I have tendencies for material enjoyment, and you offering me some boon. And it's like I would be a merchant that wants to buy something from you. And this is not devotional service. So he already pinpointed that devotional service, it's not going to work like this if we go to Krishna for some material boon. So again, it just brings us again, and he goes through all this struggle, being so many attempts of trying to kill him and so on. And he keeps resisting and keeps resisting and resisting. And even though he sees the Lord face to face, and he continues to offer prayers like this, please protect me. Please remove those sinful demoniac desires from my heart. So that's again, that's the only way that we can. So although we may not be so strong in resisting our material desires, it may not be so easy. We may give in, it may be difficult, but we should meditate on the attitude of Prahlada Maharaj, and we should try to continue to constantly endeavor, and turn our heart, turn our face towards Krishna and beg him, Krishna, you see me, I'm falling time after time after time, but please, you're Krishna, Lord Balaram, he's the source of all strength. And Prabhupada again explains that strength refers to the spiritual strength. So please give me strength, so I can resist those desires, and I can fully engage in your service, and I can finish this cycle of birth and death. And another aspect of the material desires is that it has the effect on our life, on our spiritual life, and the effect is such, is compared to like the reeds that are growing on the boundaries of the lake. And if you don't control, if you don't check them, they're going to grow more and more and more and more, and then eventually there's not going to be any lake. It's just going to be the plants growing there. So we have to be very, very careful that we don't allow ourselves to be comfortable with our material desires and thinking, okay, I just continue to enjoy my life. I'll just fulfill this desires and that desire, and then Krishna will help me. Because if we become complacent about our material desires, what's going to happen? The heart is going to be grown over these desires, and our bhakti lata, the creeper of bhakti, is going to be completely overgrown. It's just like the weeds, they grow over the plant, desired plants, and then the plant is so weak that basically is non-existent. So if we have this opportunity in our life, that we were awakened to Krishna consciousness, that we were awakened to our spiritual awareness, then we should be very, very careful not to waste that opportunity and allow those material desires take over. And Srila Prabhupada and Acharyas, they designed the path for us. They designed a boat by which we can cross that ocean of material desires. And this is the process of Krishna consciousness as is given to us by Srila Prabhupada. Not only he gave us the Maha Mantra, not only he gave us the books. Some people may be good with reading books, some not. Some people may be good with chanting Mahamantra, some not. But he also gave us a physical engagement for our senses. So he opened temples and he installed the deities. He installed Krishna. He brought Krishna to us. And he said to us, if you can't do this, okay. If you can chant, if you can chant, it's okay. If you can't read, it's okay. But come here and serve me. And Krishna, and every time somebody calls and says, oh, we need to do some service, and I may feel, oh, I'm tired, whatever. But I think, well, Krishna calls me, says, come, do some service. So I think, great, okay, I'll go. So, if we can, I think that's what the point of sadhusanga, that we need to reflect, on the condition of our heart. We need to reflect on the opportunities that we have, and we need to reflect how do we position ourselves in that situation. Maybe I'll stop here and I'll ask you, Prabhu, if anybody has some comments or reflections. Haribol.
I have a question. I'm just listening. How do we not fall in the trap of material desires? Because on one hand, especially for grahastas, right? So for householders, it's said that we're allowed we have a license that we can exercise some material desires, have a way that, yes, to be able to, the goal is eventually to get rid of all of those desires or transform them so that they become Krishna conscious desires. But until you get to that point, we have to go out into the world, right? And we have to mitigate those different desires that we have. We have to, serve children, all of these things, community, right? We have certain responsibilities. So could you comment a little bit about that balance? Because it can be a trap. But on one hand, somebody's telling you, we're being told that, yes, we have a little license to enjoy somewhat or have some sense gratification. But on the other hand, where do you draw the line? And, you can get swayed to one direction or another direction. And a lot of devotees often say that that's so tricky, manipulating material energy or dealing with material energy. How do you do it? Right?
Well, I think the word that you use this to describe it's a trap. I think it's a very good word because it is a trap and it's supposed to trap us. So, I don't think, there's even description of yogis and jnanis that they try to become disentangled from this material world by renouncing things and so on, but still they fail because it is a trap. It is designed in such a way, there's two aspects to it. There's this world outside of us and there's the world inside of us. And the world inside of us is designed in such a way within this material body and mind, material mind, is designed in such a way that it is made to interact with the outside world. So how you can escape this? You can't escape. The only way, and again, the only way here described is that even though, let's say you are a grihasta and you think, yes, I have a license for some sense enjoyment, yes, but license, the word license means it's a restriction. It doesn't mean it's a free fall, yes? Let's say if you let's speak about the driving license, yes? Well, driving licenses are issued to people not because they can, now they are licensed so they can drive the road any way they want, yes? Driving license is issued to somebody who agrees to abide by the restrictions. And in that way, when they abide by restrictions, then they can navigate the road safely with other people who also abide by the restrictions, and they navigate safely, they avoid major accidents and things like this. So when you have a license for grihasta ashram and some restricted sense enjoyment, it is to give you a little outlet, that you don't force yourself completely to become austere or renounce everything. You can still enjoy, but you can at the same time you can engage in devotional service. So in order, like as a licensed person, you understand that there is certain obligation on you to maintain that license. And the only way to maintain that license, you have to follow certain standards of behavior. And that standards, the most important standard in Grihastha ashram is to hear about Krishna and chant. So having previously I even mentioned that grihastas should always keep their door open and invite guests, especially saintly persons, so they can enlighten them. So if you practice your license, if you practice your grihasta ashram license and you enjoy, but you try to maintain that license by hearing Krishna Katha continuously, by trying to engage in some service for the deities, then you're going to be protected and the balance was going to be there. But if at some point you think, I'm licensed so I can do whatever I want, then it's a problem. Hare Krishna, Mother.
RuPaul had her hand up also. I don't know where it went, but she had her
No,
hand up.
Mataji, I wanted to hear from you, so I lowered my hand. I'll go after you.
Okay. I just wanted to say basically what you said, but I just want to say it in a slightly different way, that the process of Krishna consciousness is about developing love for Krishna. So it's not only about getting rid of material desire, it's about developing love for Krishna. And so during our household affair, or during a time when different times in our lives, we're expected to do different things. Even if we're not householders, we still, at different times of our lives, we have other obligations that look like they offer us opportunities for sense gratification. And at the same time, we need to be cultivating our attraction to Krishna. And as our attraction to Krishna grows, we make facility to remember Krishna all the time. I always tell about, and you had the realization the other day, Krishna Dalal, that my friend Ananda Tirtha Prabhu, he asked one sannyasi, he was getting married, coming out of the brahmachari ashram, and he said, we're moving into a house, and what can we do so that we won't forget Krishna? He said, you should decorate your house so that everything you see reminds you of Krishna. And so you have to build that into your lifestyle. And then gradually, as you develop love for Krishna, then all the other desires just automatically pale in relation to what Krishna can do for you. So that's one thing that we often don't put enough emphasis on. It's not like you just get your sadhana done, you do your stuff, you read a little, you chant a little, but you need to really try, work at, and that's a funny word, work at, but you need to make an effort to develop love for Krishna. And see him as a person, understand his needs, try to cook to please him, try to make offerings to please him, try to worship him. And householders are supposed to worship the deities so that their house becomes, this is something that came up in my class yesterday, that householders are supposed to worship the deities so that their house becomes a temple. And it's Krishna's house. I'm living in Krishna's house. And so everything that's done here needs to go somehow or other in front of Krishna, has to be reciprocated with Krishna. So the more we cultivate that, then the easier it is to give up our sense enjoyment. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Mother. So would Mother Rupa like to say something also?
Yes, Prabhuji. I just wanted to add one example. When you were giving example for Prahlada Maharaj, the other example that came to my mind was of Sudama. So he was Krishna's friend, and he was deeply stricken by poverty. And when his wife told him to visit Krishna so that he could seek for help. But Sudama, being a Brahmin, he wouldn't want to ask. And of course, during need, he wouldn't want to ask from Krishna. But all throughout, Krishna knew about Sudama's need. So even if Sudama didn't want or Sudama didn't ask, Krishna knew what Sudama needed. So I'm not so, I would just say that for me, what helps is that having faith. So whenever it gets the darkest, whenever you see that you are deep in your wall of thoughts, that is when you need to have faith. That is when you have to ask yourself to have faith. And when you have faith, then definitely Krishna will respond in some way or the other. So even if we desire for something, of course it is difficult, it is hard to say than it is to do. But the only thing which can keep us going is that Krishna is watching us. Krishna knows what we need. So he will fulfill our desires, or he would just help us in a way that those desires go away. So that was one example which I just wanted to share, of course. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you so much, Mother. Thank you very much. Would anybody else like to share some things?
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Mother.
Thank you so much for a really nice interactive class.
Thank you.
Actually, I always had this question in my mind. Sometimes it is quoted how sense gratification is supposed to be like salt. You're not supposed to take too much or too little. And I always kind of wondered about the meaning of it. I mean, is it because I guess we're not supposed to go too austere to such a point that we cannot even perform devotional service? That's why they're saying not too much either. Oh, sorry, not too little.
Maybe I think it would be best if we ask Senior Vaishnavas if they would like to give answer to that.
That's not fair.
No, I don't mind saying, but I think there's more value.
If you're too austere, then if you in the Nectar of Devotion, Rupa Goswami, in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, actually, Rupa Goswami explains that if you're too austere, then it makes your heart hard. So, and it has a negative effect, because Krishna has to have a soft heart in order to have a relationship with him. And so if we get a hard heart, then we can't have a loving relationship with Krishna. We're just fixed on being austere. And Krishna doesn't want us to do that. So we're not supposed to perform austerities to parch the body. It's explained in the Bhagavad Gita: sleeps too much, or eats too much, or eats too little, sleeps too much, sleeps too little. These things are not beneficial. But we should do as much austerity as we can do without feeling depraved. And also the thing is, one thing is that if we do too much austerity, it won't last. I remember when I was in Mayapur, one of my god sisters is a professional I forget what it called. She's a homeopathic doctor, and she told me that she's giving me a diet, and she told me, but you're going to have to break it every once in a while, because if you don't break it every once in a while, you won't be able to follow it. Then you'll just give it up and you'll not do it at all. So it's better that you break it every once in a while and then follow it most of the time. And so, not a license for killing yourself with eating garbage. But when Vraja makes pizza on Saturday, you have to eat some. And you know that the rest of the week, you're going to have to not eat things that are not good for you. So in that way, you kind of tell your consciousness that I know what you need, just like you do with a child. I know what you need, but I also know what you don't need. And so we have to make a deal. And it's easier to make a deal when you know that you've been kind of heard.
Thank you so much.
Okay, can we ask Raja to say something?
Sure, I keep raising my hand and then unraising it. And I think, you were touching on and everybody's question almost touched it, and there was answers to my question. But I was just thinking, one point I like what you were saying is that we need to have role models, almost, that we can hang on to Vaishnavas through their examples, because this helps to make it a little more, visible for us. And then when you were talking about comfort, I was thinking that, I don't have so many material desires, but then comfort, people work so hard so that they can be comfortable. And I started thinking, wait a minute, maybe I do have a lot of material desires. Maybe I'm working so hard because I like buying stuff. I like this freedom of cash flow or money. And then I was wondering, what is devotional service? How can, there's so many different branches of, just the 9 processes of devotional service, but how can we distinguish when am I happy, right? I'm just happy doing what I need to do. I do a little bit of, service here, and I do my, duties to the best of my ability, and I do things. So am I happy, or am I, materially enjoying right now without suffering? So how do I, what is devotional service then? Is it a feeling? Is it an attitude? Is it, I have to have some service to the deity? I have to do a certain number of chanting? I don't know. Is that a clear? It's kind of a really big question, but.
Well, whether you ask question whether you're happy, I cannot answer this. You're the only person that.
And so, is it that we know, or is it that we get?
Actually, there is a verse that describes that the person who eats, this as you eat, you experience taste and nourishment and strength coming. So similarly, when we engage in devotional service, and it's the symptom of the fact that we are doing something right is that our material desires are diminishing, that we want to hear more and more about Krishna, and then we have direct perception of Krishna. So we see that Krishna is present in our life. It's not that we see necessarily that we see him face to face, but we perceive his presence in our life. So you can answer yourself that question. Do you feel these things? Are your material desires going away? Do you want to hear more and more? Do you perceive Krishna's presence in your life? If yes, then if you feel happy, then you're on a good path. If, however, no, if you are being constantly, distressed by the desires, if you don't feel strength, spiritually, if you feel as though you forgot Krishna or Krishna forgot you, then probably it's the material experience. So that's my understanding of that. Hare Krishna, Harimamrita Prabhu, please accept my humble obeisances. Would you like to say something?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
And I refer Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Leela, Volume 2, Chapter 7 to 11. In that, text number 246, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then asked Ramananda Roy, out of all glorious activities, which is the most glorious? And the answer is given, the greatest reputation of a living entity can have is to be a devotee of Krishna, to act in Krishna consciousness. The whole world is turning in accordance with the competitive mood. But the kind of name and fame is temporary, for it lasts only as long as the temporary material body exists. It goes in 2 pages, a lot of answers for it. So basically, we cannot avoid material qualities and material characteristics unless and otherwise we are fully turned towards spiritual activities. Day in and day out, think of Krishna all the time. Whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever you perform, think for Krishna before you do anything else.
Thank you very much, Prabhu. Thank you so much. You start to finish now? No? Okay. So maybe I'll also make one reflection on what Mother Lakshmani said about, that we can engage in all these different activities, but we should not forget that we need to develop love for Krishna. And this is something that really I'm thinking a lot about, and I'm reflecting on that. That really, it's difficult to develop love for Krishna. It's difficult to understand our relationship with Krishna. And really, the only prism through which we can understand it is through relationship with others. Like, when we take birth, we're not taking birth like Lord Brahma in the vacuum. we're taking birth. There is a mother, there's father. Hopefully they are loving, and they interact with us. They love us. We love them back. We depend on them. And as we grow up, if we want this relationship, which are our model for how to relate to Krishna, because we have no other reference point, So I think it's very, very important for us to really, especially invest in relationship with Vaishnavas, to try to cultivate loving, very caring, very outward looking relationship that I want to do something for you. What can I do? Not what is it in it for me. Like Prahlada Maharaja is explaining, he doesn't want to have a relationship with Krishna that, you give me, I do something for you and you give me a boon. So we need to learn that attitude of work, of giving and offering service to others. And if we do that, then everybody becomes stronger spiritually. And everybody is much better equipped to approach Krishna with loving relationship. So I think this is something within our purview, within our capacity to do. And we should really, like we're trying to resist giving into material desires. At the same time, we have to really make an endeavor to invest in those loving relationships with Vaishnavas, because that's where that hard knot in a heart becomes broken. And that's how we learn how to love Krishna. So I think this is, and we're getting closer to 7. So I just wanted to share some other things. I'm reading from this book, Lectures from the Disciple from Niranjan Maharaj, and there is a section about festivals, and there is one about Nrisimha Chaturdasi, from which I took that verse actually. I just wanted to share with you some paragraphs here that Maharaj shares on this lecture. So here he says that, as described in the Harivamsha, and also as explained by Jiva Goswami in his Bhakti Sandarbha, in his previous birth, Prahlada Maharaj was one of the 5 sons of great Brahmana named Vasu Sharma, and his wife, Sushila. His name was Vasudev, and he was the eldest of the 5 sons. 4 of the sons were very good Brahmanas and devotees of the Lord. However, Vasudev was very degraded as a result of his association with a prostitute. One time, he and the prostitute got into a big argument, resulting in them both deciding to fast that day and stay up all night. It just happened that night happened to be Nrisimha Chaturdasi. It was the same Titi when Lord Nrisimhadev appears. Because of fasting completely on that day and staying up during the night, Vasudev became a great devotee, Prahlada Maharaj, of Lord Nrisimhadev in the next life. So I think it's a nice reference to understand where Prahlada Maharaj comes from. He doesn't come from the line of pure Vaishnavas. I mean, he probably comes from the line of pure Vaishnavas, but in this previous life, he was actually very fallen. He was absorbed in material self-gratification, even though his family, his mother, father, his brothers were Vaishnavas, Brahmanas, described here. But because by accident he fasted, he did some austerity on the Lord Nrisimhadev Chaturdasi. He took birth next life as Prahlada Maharaj, and he was giving that facility to open his heart and give love to Krishna, and Krishna reciprocate with him. He arranged his life in such a way that first he instructed him from the womb. He affected his consciousness in such a way by Narada Muni that he was become enlightened about the existence of Krishna and about the Krishna consciousness. And then he arranged his life in such a way that was so full of obstacles and struggle, and opened the capacity, loving capacity within his heart. So we should never minimize even a little deed that we can do in relationship to Krishna or Krishna's devotees. We may be very fallen. We may have so many material desires. We may have committed so many sinful activities, but even one small deed, that's one small little, even unknowingly committed service towards the Vaishnava or to Krishna, can have such an impact that Krishna will pick us up and he will give us opportunity to serve him and to become a devotee. So when we hear Krishna says, come and serve, let's be very mindful. Let's not say no. Because if we do say no, then we're just cheating ourselves from the opportunity that was given to us in this life. You know, we read about lives. That's one example I wanted to give. Niranjan Maharaj was narrating the story about Sridhar Swami, who was Sridhar, the devotee that passed away. Maharaj had the cancer and he passed away in Vrindavan, in Mayapur, I think. Wasn't not Sridhar Maharaj? I'm sorry, my memory is so bad. Anyways, Maharaj was, the Maharaj knew that his life is coming to an end, so he went to Mayapur and he wanted to have association of his god brothers and god sisters. So every evening he would organize kirtan in his room, and he invited Niranjan Maharaj to come every evening. And this was, I think they had the GBC meetings at the time or something like that. So after GBC meetings, Maharaj would go every evening and he would participate in kirtan. One day he had a terrible headache and he wrote a note to Maharaj. Does anybody remember the name of Maharaj? I'm sorry. Anyways.
Swami.
Who?
Sridhar Swami.
Sridhar Swami, yes, okay. So my first instinct was good. So Maharaj had a terrible headache and he wrote a note to Sridhar Maharaj that he apologized that tonight he won't be able to come to him because he has terrible headache. So then Maharaj was going to his quarters, and as he was going to his quarters, he was thinking, what am I doing? Maharaj has cancer, he's in horrible pain, and he's there, and I have just a headache. And I'm trying to excuse myself from going and taking his association. So he just turned around and he went to the kirtan. And as Sridhar Maharaj saw Niranjan Swami, he said, "Oh, Maharaj, I thought you're not coming." And then he said, "Please come here." And he asked Maharaj, "Please sit down here." He sat asked Niranjan Maharaj to sit by his bed. And then he asked his servant to give him a lemon tiger balm. And then he took the tiger balm and started to massage Maharaj's head. And he was massaging his head like really intensely for Maharaj just for quite a long time. I don't know, somebody was telling me that Maharaj at the same time was massaging Maharaj's feet, but I don't know if, because Maharaj did not narrate that in that story. But anyways, a little perspective in our life. We think that it's so difficult. Something is difficult. Krishna asks us to come and serve, and we think it's difficult because we experience so many difficult things. But let's just look at our lives, ourselves, and let's see what opportunity it is. Like really, we should be crawling on our knees to serve Krishna when we have that opportunity. Lord Brahma, when he prays, in Krishna book, when he was praying to Lord Krishna after he stole the cowherd boys and girls, he was praying, "Let me just be a blade of grass in Vrindavan so the devotees can walk on me." Even though I cannot move, I cannot do anything, I cannot walk, I cannot speak, but I can be the grass and lie, and Krishna can walk on me. So when we just take a little of perspective like this, then we can get energized. And Krishna is the source of all energy. I think that I have no energy, but energy does not come from me. Even Prahlada Maharaj, when his father asked him, "Where do you have the energy, strength to resist me like that?" And Prahlada says, "I have this. What is the source of your energy?" And he says, "It's the same that is the source of your energy." So if we think that we have no energy to do service to Krishna, we pray to Krishna. He's the source of our energy. He's going to give us energy. When we look at the Vaishnavas in our line, there's so many of them that were crippled, but they were such a enthusiastic devotees and servants of Krishna. So maybe I can stop here. If anybody would like to say something, please go ahead. Or if not, then I can read one more paragraph.
I think we'll wrap it up. It's almost
So we stop, yes?
You can just read the paragraph.
Well, let's maybe stop then, because that's going to be longer than. Okay, I'll just read it. So, not only does the Lord protect his devotees in the ways described in the pastime of Prahlada, but also from within the heart by enlightening it. Sridhar Swami thus offers the prayer: "I offer my obeisances to Lord Nrisimhadev, who always enlightens Prahlada from within his heart. He always protects his devotee from attacks of nescience. This This attack of nations is, as described here, the demon-like desire for fruitive activity to enjoy the material world to the utmost. So we see Prahlad Maharaj, he was a fallen person, but Krishna from within the heart enlightened him, and then he gave him devotion. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur describes in his Bhajan Rahasya that a devotee must take an effort to become free from these anarthas or unwanted desires within the heart. If a devotee makes no effort to become free from anarthas, then it is not possible for him to advance in devotional service because he will not get the mercy of the holy name of the Lord. Even by repeated attempts, he will not be able to become free. Only when the devotee falls down before the lotus feet of the holy name of the Lord and cries with tears in his eyes can he actually be helped. For a devotee praying in this way, he will help from within the heart to remove these anarthas. These demon-like desires within the heart are destroyed by the Lord himself. The Lord acts from within the heart for those devotees who develop the urge to hear and chant about him. So I'll stop here. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Hare Krishna. Thank you all very much for your wonderful participation. Thank you, Paramahamsa Prabhu, for the scintillating conversations, right, and discussion. This nice presentation. And thank you also, Mother Lakshmi Moni. It's always so nice, and your input is invaluable. So, and Guru Prasad Prabhu as well. And I also, let me just see here. Yeah, so I mean, you know, we were just reading about Lord Nrisimhadev and Prahlada Maharaj. So that's a meditation to come. Paramahamsa Prabhu was talking about trying to take up the service. So we've got another couple of weeks to go, and maybe we can do something special. There have been some conversations with devotees about trying to put something together. If you Prabhus have some suggestions, some thoughts, a desire to do something for the lordships here and for Lord Nrisimhadev, then please feel free to let us know. Any act of service would be greatly appreciated, would be wonderful. And we'll keep you posted as we try to put something together. And now we will conclude. We'll have a few more minutes of kirtan before the curtains are drawn. And so please take advantage of this opportunity to have darshan of their lordships, to make your prayers, to do some chanting and join us in kirtan. Shishigornitai ki.
Hare Krishna.
Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare